I have been searching.
Welcome to Following the Fire, a podcast for Christians who are rethinking their faith and need a safe place to doubt. As we wander through the spiritual wilderness, we want to find and follow God wherever the pillar of fire leads.
And just like God's people in the Bible, we get lost, we miss the point, and we don't have all the answers. But maybe that's okay. We're on this journey together. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Steve.
But even on my heart can't compare with what you're worth.
I finally like who I become, huh? Here in the silence, I analyze all my thoughts, huh? It's hard to hear a hating rapper through applause, huh? It's hard to see the authentic with all these frauds, huh? I ain't running from tension, baby, I press it. Cause in these moments, you finding all your investments. I've been speaking to people about my depression. I've been drinking this water, I get my steps in. This been a season of pulling back all the layers, investigating my faith, finding the places that I waver, having grace upon myself as I restructure my foundation, put my weight up on the block. I've been building up on my patience for myself. Used to think I really wasn't worthy of no help. They told me need to pull all your pursuits upon the shelf. Took advantage of my gifts and went and built their wealth. Then I broke the chains and I rebelled.
Well, we are honored to have with us this episode Mr. J. Crum. I guess I forgot to ask you how to describe yourself. Rapper, artist, producer, business owner.
All
Is
good.
That right?
Yeah.
All good?
You did a good job, man. That's
Yeah, I want to start by thanking you for your time. I first came across your music and you in general on TikTok several months ago.
Yeah.
Back when I thought that TikTok was for kids making stupid dances.
Right. It took me a while to jump on the app because I thought the exact same thing.
Yeah. But the honestly, and we'll get to this in a minute, but Clarity just like hit me square in the middle of the eyes. Good. That song of yours, that was really impactful for me, and I've loved sharing your stuff with friends and just hearing what you have to say. Not just your music, but you've got a lot of great insight into Christianity and all this kind of stuff, the faith landscape of America. Mm-hmm. And so that's kind of what we want to talk to you about today. You want to kind of give a brief intro yourself before we get going with things?
Yeah. So my name is J. Crum. I'm originally from Detroit, Michigan. I live in Omaha, Nebraska now. I've been making music for a long time. I started out in kind of the Christian hip hop sphere of things, but over the last couple of years, I've gravitated away from that as my faith journey has kind of shifted and everything. So, but I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. So what got you started making music?
I think originally it was boredom. Like, I had a bunch of time at school because I got ahead in credits. So I was ahead in credits, but my mom didn't trust me. I got in trouble a lot. So my mom didn't trust me to get an early out. So I was super smart, but, mischievous, right? I just was, doing stuff I wasn't supposed to. So my mom didn't trust me to get an early out. So I had 3 study halls, in my junior year of high school. And so, then I just downloaded a bunch of beats off the internet and burned them onto a CD. And I started writing, and that's kind of like what I did to like occupy my time. So then I would go like whenever kids were like freestyling at the lunch table and stuff like that, I would like go up there and I would like rap something that I wrote or something. And, people thought it was dope. And that was kind of how I got started, like finding out like, by, kind of the peer test, right? And finding out that like, people was really rocking with it. So I just kept going from there.
That's really cool. Has your stuff always been kind of faith focused?
Yeah. From when I started, I was, I grew up in church. So it was like that was kind of everything for me for, most of my teenage years and early 20s. Yeah.
And how has I'll probably get into this more later too, but how has your faith impacted what you write? You kind of mentioned that a little bit, but
yeah, I think, cause early on, man, I was super, super, super devout. So like, everything early on was like all about Jesus. So like my whole, like everything was about my faith early on. So I think, yeah, so I would say it influenced my music like crazy. It was literally everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
I grew up in a very, very like religious household. So, you know, it comes with its own struggles with that, right? 'Cause you don't really get to be a teenager because you know, you got all these rules and regulations and everything like that. So you kind of got to like, and you have kind of your whole eternity hanging over your head. Right. So, I think some of it was even like just pressure of just being like, if I'm going to do music, I have to do it like this or else like I'm not going to have any support, anyway. So.
Right. Yeah. And I'm thinking back to high school, and because Steve and I both grew up in, devout Christian homes, and like high school, especially I didn't go to Christian school or something. So I'm even more defined by my faith in that environment. And
right.
I'm a teenager, so I'm fired up about everything and passionate about everything that I do. And some stuff I look back at, I'm like, oh, that was awesome that I was into photography. But some stuff I look back, I'm like, oh, I was, the president of the Young Republicans Club too. And, like that passion both gives us like these cringe moments, but also like drives us to be creative or whatever it is.
Yeah. I had like a lanyard that I kept my keys on that said "I love Jesus" like over and over and over again. It was just really. It was like when I think about certain things that like stuff was like super cringe, bro. Like it was just really some stuff was just came off really really corny. But like, you're a teenager, you go to youth group, they tell you, like these are the things you're supposed to do, and you need to lead all your friends to Christ, and you need to do all these things. And so, that's how I grew up. So
that's a lot of pressure, isn't it?
It is. On a 15-year-old kid, 16-year-old kid, like save all your friends.
Yeah.
Holy crap.
If they go to hell, it's your fault.
Right. The blood is on your hands. I remember there's been like sermons that at that age when the pastor's talking about, the blood is on your hands if you don't lead them to Christ. The blood is on your hands if you don't give them the gospel. Just like heavy stuff.
Man. Yeah, so I just thought of several. I've had a really cringe t-shirt that I'm not even going to say what it said, but so you kind of had this structured boredom though, right? Which maybe is like the recipe to give to teenagers for them to just become creative, right? Like make them sit down and then let them be bored.
Yeah.
And so you had music and you started writing in high school. So then where did that take you next?
So there was a person at my church who kind of found out he was also a security guard at the school. So he would hear me rapping like, in like hallways or at lunch tables and stuff like that. And it's like, it started to like, people were starting to like notice. And so he was like, yo, let me pay for your studio time. So he started paying for my studio time and I would be recording. I came out with my first mixtape when I was 17. Oh, wow. And so, from there, I started getting booked, by other churches around the city to come do shows. And so things started to kind of pick up steam where I'm performing maybe 3-4 times a month at different youth groups and, churches and stuff like that around the city. And then, when I graduate high school, I end up going to, like a master's commission type program. And you guys familiar with master's commission?
No,
okay. So it's like it's pitched to you as like this discipleship program. So I think a lot of like Assemblies of God churches have them.
Okay.
Where like you have you have people fresh out of high school and they kind of send you on a ministry track. So depending on what you want to do, you know, you'll join this, you'll live on campus, you'll, you know, you pay tuition, but it's like the super intensive discipleship program. You can't date, you can't watch like rated R movies. You can't like listen to music. It was like when I look back on it now, it was like super culty, like super culty. But like I had joined it with like this excitement of like, I'm going to get closer to God. I'm going to learn more about God. You know, I'm going to get, you know, when this is all said and done, I'm going to be prepared for ministry, everything like that. And so I left when I left home to go do this. The home I grew up in was super religious, but they were also super exclusive. So it was like this thing of like, you don't just go to other churches. Like you know.
Yeah, we're familiar.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can relate.
Yeah. So when I left, like I was like excommunicated. Like my family wasn't talking to me. It was, you know, it was bad. So I was like, all right, well, I'm leaving this. And I felt like I was like free, but what happened was I left one super toxic situation and I joined a completely new super toxic situation. And I was the only black kid there. Or there was one other one, but like if in the whole congregation, it was like 500, 600 people, and there's like 2 black people. And,
wow.
And they did a lot to try to invalidate my experience, my opinions, a lot of that. And so and I put up with a lot of it because it was like, 1, I have nowhere else to go. And 2, like they would keep saying like, this is how you do ministry. Like if you can't handle this, you can't handle ministry, you know, if you can't. Yeah. So stuff like that. So, you know, I put up with a lot.
How was I'm just curious because I very much identify with what you're saying. Are the denomination that we grew up in. Certain ones are more exclusive than others, but you know, kids and friends of mine that have similar experiences. I ended up going though to the same school that identifies with the same tradition, and still kind of met this, I was the high school kid full of ideals, and then I end up in kind of the reality, and I've just been waiting for this moment where I'm going to be surrounded by Christians and like Christian mentors and all this stuff. I'm curious how, like, what drew you to this that was so powerful that you kind of left your family's tradition? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think it was, I was so hurt at where I was. I think also the fact that it was so exclusive, right? Because I grew up apostolic. And so, kind of how they believed like was no one else other than who has like that doctrine is actually even saved. So like, even other like Christian groups were like not saved for real because they didn't believe exactly like they did. And because of that, I was so closed off. And then to see that there was this program or this church or whatever that's like, hey, we travel around the country and we do youth services and we do all that. It was like, oh man, there's this whole other world out there that I can experience, and so and you'll grow closer to God and find other people and that share the same passion, and so that's what really attracted me to wanting to leave where I was and try this new thing.
So it was like a kind of the generic evangelical church that you found?
Yeah, it was. So it was like complete opposite from what I was used to, right? So you kind of go in wide eyed, like, oh snap, and yeah, man, it's not made for somebody like me, I quickly learned that. I tried to adapt and I tried to change, I tried to do all that, but it's just not, it's not set up for a person like me to flourish or grow or whatever.
What do you mean by like you?
Yeah, so I'm from the inner city. Uh-huh. I'm Black, so my experiences, my perspective, the things that I'm passionate about, the things I believe in, even the way that I vote, right? All of these things are like completely opposite. So when I say like, oh yeah, what kind of attracted to me is like it's something different, it's something new or whatever, it's something I haven't experienced. At the same time, it's like, yeah, this is at the same time they don't take into account that, oh, there's somebody here who has a different experience or different opinion, and also don't take into account that, hey, maybe we've been wrong about our opinion or our experience, or or maybe like his experience is just as valid as ours is, So, like there was times where like even in like there was like a prayer service and the senior pastor from the mic literally said, "Hey Jay Crum, stop being so Black." Like, yeah,
what?
Yeah, he like told me stop being so Black.
Oh my word.
They would, I would walk down the hallway and people would be like, "Yo, what's up, homie?" and start doing their hands all weird, yeah, bro. It was just like this really weird stuff. Super, like a lot of microaggressions, a lot of just straight up overt racism. And so, yeah, it's not really set up for, a person like me to, when I say that, that's what I mean. Like, it's not really set up for a person like me to flourish.
Yeah, it's definite culture clash, but if nothing else,
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
I was going to say, it kind of sounds like, that every group has unspoken rules that they live by, and nobody tells them to you, you just learn them.
Right.
And then that becomes your reality. It's kind of your goldfish tank, the edges of your reality. And then, you've got a place like that, and then you're there just naturally from the rules that you're taught or the culture that you have, but you just run into the side of the goldfish tank over and over again.
Right.
And so it looks like you're, from the group that's like, they're like, why are you causing trouble?
Exactly. It's just, and I got into, like, that was a thing. Like, I got in trouble all the time, just for me offering a different perspective. One of the things you learn very quickly, like, is they would always like say, hey, we value diversity here. We value diversity. And I hear that all the time from like, especially from evangelical churches, diversity. Diversity is honoring people's experiences and cultures, right? What you guys are really talking about is, or what you're really asking from people from different cultures is to assimilate to the dominant culture, which is white culture. So you're asking me to assimilate and make all my ideals, the way that I talk, the way that I dress, the music that I listen to, you want all of it to get in line with the dominant culture here. And if I don't do that, then I'm causing trouble, right? If I don't do that, then I'm causing division or all of these things, right? And so that's been one of my biggest gripes with evangelical church is they're not asking for diversity. They're not calling for diversity. They don't value diversity. Having a Black worship leader up there singing Hillsong isn't diversity. Like, you just have a Black face doing all the things that are popular in white culture. That's not diversity. So yeah.
That had to be frustrating and disheartening in a lot of ways, to be at a place where you're trying to connect with God and everything around you is saying that you're the wrong person.
Yeah. Yep.
Ugh.
And just kind of like, I identify with the school in this story, like I understand what it was like to think of diversity with zero amount of imagination.
Right.
You know, like everyone thinks exactly like me and has the same experience as me and grew up in the same, you know, subculture as me. And so I see someone else and I'm like, why are they, you know, I totally
why do
get
you
that.
think like that? Why do you, yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Were you making music while you went there or what happened to your art?
I was, so it wasn't, I wasn't making it as often. But what I was doing was I was helping write for the worship team, the youth worship team. And so I was one of the leaders there. So I would, you know, we would write our original music and stuff like that. So a lot of my time and effort went towards writing and recording albums for the youth worship team, which was another thing that was like, they took full advantage, bro. Cause like I never saw a cent, you know, like never saw a dime for any of the music that I wrote. We were on tour. We would we put out like 4 albums while I was there.
Wow.
So we were touring, we were selling shirts, we were doing all of these things. And I never saw a dime. I was helping pay for features. I was helping pay for mixing and never saw any return on that at all. Completely took advantage of our gifts and you know, effort and everything, and profited because I know they made decent amount, you know.
Yeah. So you went on from there, and then what led you to where you are now?
Yeah. So I finished up my ministry track. I was part of that program for maybe 3 years. Finished up my ministry track, and then they started like getting me interviews at churches, but they were all, so I wanted to pastor in the inner city. But of course this is a white evangelical church that has zero connections to any churches in the inner city. So they're sending me to like all of these like super rural areas to like, you know, to interview for like pastoral jobs. Like you got me, I'm like going to like Aurora and like Auburn, Nebraska, and like places like I didn't even know existed until you said, "Hey, there's this church in this city," and I'm like, you know, so I'm going to these places, and you know, I'm interviewing, and like they know it's not a good fit. I know it's not a good fit. We know this isn't going to work, but that's and so I ended up finding an inner city church on my own that was interested in having me, you know, come on staff and help out and everything like that. And they derailed it. They called the church. Really? They called the church and said, you know, why are you trying to steal our members? And all it got really, really weird. And so it like ruined my opportunity to work there, you know. And it got really, so like stuff got weird, man. I remember leaving. So I left there. And I just started I helped a friend of mine. I wasn't even like public about it. I was just helping a friend of mine plant his church. And I think I shared one of his services, and I had all the pastors from, you know, the church I was from where the school was, you know, messaging me and calling me and asking me like, you know, if you're going to leave, we should have had a conversation and all of this weird, just weird stuff. And the youth pastor there was like, "Hey, I'm getting ready to take over the church. I want you to come on staff, and you know things are going to be different. All this stuff, whatever." And I think with me, it was this thing of like, I don't know, man. It was like this weird hold. I felt like there was still some of that control that was like I was still like. I can't really explain it, man. There was still like a part of me that like wanted to be accepted. There was still a part of me that like wanted to like not feel like I just didn't waste my, you know, I didn't waste all my time doing this thing, you know.
Well, you invested a lot.
Yeah, invested a lot of time, a lot of money, relationships. So I'm like, like maybe I can see, maybe this could be worth it. So I come back. You know, I'm now leading like the church worship team, and so I'm there. But after like 3 months, it's pretty apparent that the guy who was the youth pastor is actually not going to be taking over the church. His dad won't give it up to him, whatever. So he ends up leaving. So,
and your promises went out the window with it.
Right. So when he leaves, he goes and he gets a job as a pastor in California. So he leaves, and so when he leaves, I'm like, all right, well, I have no reason to be here, so I'm done. And so I wasn't like part of church for a long time. I was kind of floating around, but I didn't really feel any like urge to like do anything. This was maybe around 2014. And so I was still doing music. I was still like performing at churches. I was still doing that. I had a show. I met my wife there. She was, I mean, I didn't like, she's my wife now, but when I saw her, she wasn't my wife. But I had a show. I saw her, and I ended up asking her out. And so, you know, things are starting to get a little more serious. And she's like, hey, you know, I would, you know, like, I do see a future with you and everything like that. But like, I would love for you to like start coming to church with me. And so I'm like, I really like this girl. So sure, we'll try to make this work. So I went back to church. And so we were doing that. I wasn't really liking where we were at. We ended up finding a different church that was like, okay. And, you know, they want me to be like the youth minister and stuff like that. So like, I ended up trying it, you know? And so this was maybe 2015, 2016. We get married. So I'm doing that. We get married, in 2016. And then I'm helping out. I'm doing youth ministry. I'm doing all that for about 2 years. My music's starting to take off around here. This is maybe 2018. My music's starting to take off. And then I have a really cool opportunity in Atlanta. And so I'm telling like the church about this cool opportunity I have in Atlanta. And the associate pastor pulls me aside and was like, hey, I feel like this is actually a distraction. I think you should, you know, it's a distraction. It's trying to pull you away from youth ministry. It's trying to pull you away. You need to be here. You know, this music thing is just, you know, taking you from your true purpose. And I remember just being like, I'm done. I'm tired of being controlled. I'm tired of all these people trying to tell me like what my life is supposed to be. And, everything like that. So I ended up leaving there, and, you know, I had this like, I had a heart to like want to, or had this desire to want to plant my own church, and wanted to plant a church that was like, I don't want it to be anything that I've seen as like toxic or abusive or anything like that. Right. So, I had another pastor friend who he had like a church planning residency, and he was like, yo, like whatever church you want to plant, I want to help, you know? So like, you know, you can serve out of here, but I want to help train you and whatever, like we could, you know, help you get resources and everything to like really plant this church. And I'm like, okay, cool. So, this is 2018. So I spend about, you know, most of 2018 into 2019 here at this church serving and getting ready to plant. It gets to be early 2020 where like we're really moving now. I'm getting ready to do my first service, and then the pandemic hits. So we go straight. So I was like, so we never even actually had like a service. We went straight digital off rip. Now that is, I don't, you know,
not recommended.
Yeah, not recommended. 0 out of 10. Would not recommend at all. And so, you know, I tried that, but around that time, news about Ahmaud Arbery came out. And so I'm pretty vocal about this, right? And that got the attention of different pastors around the city. One, because, you know, I already make music and have been pretty, you know, I'm pretty well known. And two, like, buzz is kind of going around that, okay, well, he's a pastor now and he's planted a church and everything. And so when I'm being outspoken on these issues, I live in Omaha, Nebraska, by the way. So it's not like it's like white evangelicalism is like very prevalent here.
Diversity is not what I think of when I think of Omaha.
Right. So, but it's also very segregated. So you got like, just to give it like a little bit of a, you know, so you guys can kind of see what the city is kind of like. So Warren Buffett lives in Omaha. It has like the most billionaires per capita in America. But really? Not millionaires per capita. So it's one of the safest places for like a white family to raise their kids. But it's also one of the most dangerous for black people to live because of the black homicidal victimization rate per capita is so high. And then also Omaha was notorious for redlining. And so basically what redlining is just for the people listening, is banks were denying home loans to minorities. For certain areas, so they could keep white people in a certain area, push black people to underdeveloped areas, which also with that means like because of property tax dollars, not as much money is going to the schools and all of that. So then it just continues this vicious cycle of poverty. Yeah. And so that's our city faces that a lot. So saying all that to say, Ahmaud Arbery happens. I'm being super vocal. George Floyd is murdered. I'm continuing to be super vocal, but around that time, because it's a pandemic, because there's we don't have all these other distractions and everything, America is kind of forced to look at itself, right? Yeah. And because that happens, the churches want to talk about it. All of a sudden, now churches want to talk about it. So they're calling me and they're bringing me to they want to have conversations. They want to do these online, discussions and all these things. And so I participate in these, and, I'm getting messages from church members, from wives of pastors, from pastors, just telling me how much division I'm causing, telling me, Black Lives Matter is a terrorist organization. You're condemning police brutality. You need to condemn riots. Like all of these things being thrown in my face. Right. And like, that was really when I was like, you know what? I'm done. Like, I don't want anything to do with any of this anymore. Because like, I should not have to continue to defend my existence, right? Yeah. To people that I'm supposed to be sharing a faith with. Right? And so, so like, I'm done. And that was really the thing for me that was like, not necessarily like it was me like walking away from Jesus at that point, but it was definitely a thing where like, hey, whatever this politicized, gentrified Christianity, whatever this is, like I don't want anything to do with anymore. And so that's what really sparked me like really looking into, church history and biblical history and things like that. So yeah, so that's kind of what brought me to where I am now.
So that kind of kicked off the quote unquote deconstruction of your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's gotta be frustrating. I mean, being like what you said, especially being told who you are or who you're supposed to be.
Right.
It's kind of a theme.
For sure.
A lot of your Christian life, sounds like.
Yeah, it was. I from the church that I grew up in, from the age of 12, they were telling me I'm supposed to be a youth pastor. Yeah. So like, and not only a youth pastor, but a youth pastor at that church. So like, you can imagine the tension with my family that anything I'm doing in my adult life that's not being a youth pastor at that church means I'm in sin. means I'm outside the will of God because I am not a youth pastor at that church, you know.
That kind of brings us to where I kind of came across you. Because I got into TikTok. I don't know how, but Nathan and I started this podcast almost exactly a year ago.
Okay.
And I hadn't even heard the term deconstruction before. And we were both considering leaving the church we grew up in, the same place here in Fort Collins, Colorado, where we are. And after a while, we heard the term deconstruction, so I went on TikTok looking up deconstruction stuff and came across your song Clarity. And I want to play just the first verse of that, if I could. If it's all right with you?
Yep.
And so folks who haven't heard it can take a listen. And then I want to talk to you about what led you to write it and maybe some of the feedback you got from it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Lately I've been questioning all my traditions. Like, is my mindset just a byproduct of my religion? If I continue in my left without a pot to piss in, my politics ain't lining up, that's where I found the distance. I brought my fist up and I proudly put it in the air. And then they tell me that I'm Marxist and should be aware. Ain't trying to step in your cathedral with my nappy hair. I seen your Jesus European, his complexion fair. How does it feel to know his skin was probably black as mine? I know some pastors that be triggered if they heard that line. Like, why you make it black and white? Well, I experienced the blackest nights within the walls of your creation. Been fighting to find a light. Your blonde hair, Jesus ain't no friend of me. Don't pretend he ain't the king of white supremacy. They manipulated scripture just to paint a tainted picture. Let me present you with some truth so we can tear down all your fictions. I've been searching for some clarity these days. I've been learning every part. I've been building my dexterity these days. I've been earning every score. Once again, fantastic words.
Thank
you. Great beat.
Oh man, I appreciate you.
Some pretty upfront lyrics there, man.
Yeah.
In your face.
Yeah.
So what led you to, I know you've made a couple videos of this on TikTok, but what led you to some of the what you wrote in that song?
Yeah, I think it was a lot, man. It was a lot. I was just fed up, and I was tired of the microaggressions. I was tired of one, the lack of response to that the church had to the in-your-face racism that was facing Black people, right? Mm-hmm. Like there was things happening you could not ignore, and like either they were silent or they were like defending it. Mm. Seeing that as I was also like searching out like church history and finding out like how Christianity even, or at least Western Christianity, how it even came to Black people, like how like mm-hmm. when we look at the history of America, right? We look at what Christians have done. You look at how it was Christians that justified displacing of natives, right? Mm-hmm. It was Christians who justified slavery. It was Christians who like literally got slaves, forced them into Christianity, and then like banned them from even being able to read the scripture to see like whether what they're telling them is right or wrong. You know what I mean? Like that's how the inception of Christianity was brought to my ancestors, you know? And so that seeing how even the image of Jesus had been whitewashed, right? On how like it was completely changed because white people didn't feel comfortable with worshiping a person of color. Like that was like, and then even seeing how Christian nationalism has influenced this cult. Like this culture, it doesn't make any sense. And then being a person within, I'm sorry, I have a lot of reasons, but being a person within
take your time, man.
Christian hip hop, right? So I'm a person within Christian hip hop. Hip hop was created by Black and Puerto Rican people to speak up about their trauma, to speak up about police brutality, to speak up about the treatment of minorities in America, right? And I get on Twitter and it's nothing but a bunch of white faces telling me how I should rap, telling me what I should be talking about, telling me I need to stick to these issues, telling me all of those things. Like, I was so sick of the colonialism. I was so sick of continuing to submit to this type of oppression. And so, yeah, so that's what those are the things that clarity came out of just like, I'm tired of the bullshit. Like, I don't know if you can, all right. But I was tired either. Okay. All right, cool.
Can now.
Right. So, but I was tired of it, man. And so yeah.
Yeah. So when you say you're searching for clarity, what clarity are you looking for?
Searching for clarity as far as like, because I'm a Black man in America, it is impossible for thoughts of colonialism to not influence my worldview, right? And so it is me searching out what life could be like without those influences. It's me searching for clarity on, what were my people doing before this? It's me searching for clarity of how can I remove these toxic ideologies from my life? It's me looking for clarity of like, what could life be like, without these things? And so, yeah.
Wow. Yeah, it's like I said, it's a powerful song. And, honestly, when I first heard it, some of the lines can make you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of the point.
Right.
Like, especially like what you said, I wrote down some of the lyrics. What's that? Your blonde hair Jesus ain't no friend to me. Don't pretend he ain't the king of white supremacy. It's like,
that made a lot of people upset. Yeah, that made a lot of people mad.
What was the response to this when it came out?
Yeah, it was a mix. It was a mix. Definitely a mixed reaction. This is actually how I got introduced to the deconstruction community. I wasn't really in like the deconstruction community prior to this song. I didn't even know like what to call it. And Black people, we don't call it like deconstruction. Like, we just like, oh, you left the church? Yeah, me too. Like, that's like, you looking for answers? Yeah, me too. There wasn't like a label. We don't have like a label. And so, so when the song came out though, like, yes, deconstruction community loved it. They were sharing it. They were posting a bunch of videos on it and reactions and stuff like that. That was really cool. But then you had like, once like white evangelicals got a hold of it, or even like Black people who were like heavily influenced by like white evangelicals, when they got a hold of it, it was, man, you're focusing on the wrong thing, and man, you are really like you're really causing division here, and wow, you really lost your way, and all of these things kind of came with that as well.
Like, what does it matter if Jesus is white? Or not?
Yeah. Like, Jesus could be purple. I'm still going to worship. I'm like, I understand that. But this isn't about me, like, trying to make God in my own image, right? This is me calling out the people who did.
Right.
Somebody decided, we're literally going to change the color of Jesus. And to someone who makes us more comfortable. Mm-hmm. And we're going to continue to do art, and, we're going to continue to do all that. And like, for all of that to happen, and for like people not to think that's going to affect people is wild to me, but it's that same thinking that I was talking about earlier when it comes to, a lot of these white evangelical circles. You don't care about or even it may not even be that you don't care, but it's this, you don't even consider that there's a person with a different experience that than you, right? Yeah. That there's a person who could be negatively affected by your worldview, right? Out of ignorance. It might even not even be out of hatred. It's just out of your own ignorance of not understanding hey, somebody's coming from a different perspective, a different, there's black people don't look at America like a Christian nation, right? We don't look at it as this amazing place that we could stand up and, like, when I hear the Pledge of Allegiance, it doesn't mean the same thing when you hear the Pledge of Allegiance, right? When I see the American flag, it doesn't mean the same thing when you see the American flag, right? Like, our experiences are different, and like, you don't take that into consideration. But so when I say, hey, no, white Jesus is violence. When I say that, I mean that with my whole chest, that is violence, because someone decided to change that because they needed to feel like that white was superior, right? They needed to feel like, my God has to match this because this is gonna, like, that iconography, like white Jesus helped defend slavery. It helped prop white people up in a position of power, in a position of superiority. So yeah, that's why it matters. And so when people say it doesn't matter, like, you're just being short-sighted. You don't see how it actually negatively affects people who don't look like you, Yeah.
You're really rocking the goldfish tank. It's
the same. Yeah, for
like,
sure.
No,
yeah.
Why are you talking about this stuff that we take for granted, that we don't question? Like, why are you, you're just going, it's the same thing as the school, right? Like the dominant culture is going to say, like, what are you talking about? And why are
exactly.
We're all fine with this. So why can't, why can't you be,
right.
You posted something that, I had never thought of this, because I'm guilty of that. I'm a white Christian living in America. Mm-hmm. And you posted how deconstruction is a different thing in the black community, especially around Christian nationalism,
right?
Because your lived experience has never been, you don't want to get back to some great thing,
right? Right. There's no make America great. It's not great for us,
right?
Like, when did history say that?
It feels like a different but parallel path. You know what I mean? Like, there's similar events that are causing these. Because you said, my politics, what caused the separation, or that's when you started to notice.
Yeah, that's where it started, yeah.
Which is like a lot of what the white church is going through, mm-hmm. but like from different angles, you know what I mean?
Right. Like, because for me, it wasn't like, and you could correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of white Christians, it was like, oh, I thought this way. Right, or at least white Christians who have deconstructed, I had thought this way for a long time. I had thought, Republican was a way to go. I thought, right wing, right politics, all of that. Something happened. You shifted your thinking, and it was like, okay. And so some of that politics or whatever, you found that tension of just being like, hey, I don't know if I agree with this anymore.
Yeah.
With black community, it was like, oh no, we voted Democrat all the time.
Welcome to the party.
What I mean? Like, we weren't voting for Trump. We weren't celebrating that. And not even like, and it's not even about necessarily like the political party, but it was this thing of like this feeling of patriotism and this feeling of like, this is our home and we need to fight for it with all, that's not prevalent in our community.
you know?
Yeah.
So the deconstruction comes from a whole different angle. So when I speak about the politics, it's one, because my music has kind of made me a public figure in certain things. So there's people from other walks of life who are exposed to me, right? So I post a video that might have a black fist, and I got some white person coming up to me and telling me I'm a Marxist. You know what I mean? Or telling me like, you know, like just, or coming to try to tell me about like Africa and my history and all this stuff that like I know about. You're not going to sit here and try to educate me on who I am and where I come from and what I believe and what my symbols come from and everything like that. Like sorry, I don't want to cuss too much on here, but like, get out of here, man. Like, so, but when it comes to like deconstructing from the black church, it comes from a different angle, because it's like, we talk about, you know, it's more of like escaping control. It's more about like finding our true identity when we come into collision of, or when we lean into the tension of how did we even get here? We begin to see that it was violence that got us here, right? That it was, and so a lot of black deconstruction is the search for black dignity, black dignity again. The search for who we truly are, the search for, you know, so that's why, like, when you see some black people who like deconstruct, they might switch to more of like an Ethiopian, like orthodoxy type theology, or they'll, if they stay in Christianity, or they'll go to more like African traditional type stuff, Yoruba, things like that. Or they might just completely deconstruct and, you know, they're just spiritual. Some maybe completely void of spiritual, but the reasons of why they deconstructed are very, very different.
A lot of it comes around to the term that it's new for me the last few months, decolonizing.
Yeah, for sure. Faith. For sure.
Like what, like you're saying earlier, like what would this be like if my ancestors hadn't been drug over here as slaves and forced to do this thing?
Yeah.
And what
parts of this are European and white, and what parts of this are Christian?
Right. For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, and figuring out, you know, what that could be and what that could look like in our current context, right? Yeah. And leaning into all of the uncomfortability. I think a lot of times we avoid it, right? So I put out a video recently talking about Christianity and the transatlantic slave trade. Mm-hmm. And like, people were angry with me. Like, I'm like, you're trying to get people to deconvert. I'm like, all I'm saying is, if I've said anything that is incorrect, please point it out, right? Because I'm not saying anything that's incorrect, right? Mm-hmm. So me just pointing into history and saying, hey, this is what happened, y'all, isn't me like trying to deconvert anybody. It's me just being honest about the history of it. So if you want to continue to practice this, that's fine, but lean into the uncomfortable tension with that, right? Because having cognitive dissonance about what happened historically is going to help the offense continue to go, right? It's going to continue to allow people to ignore each other's experiences, right? To ignore each other's perspectives. It's going to do that because we're just choosing to not even acknowledge what has happened, right? So like, me talking about history shouldn't be what deconverts you. If it makes you uncomfortable, lean into that and find out why, right? And find out what you should do about it. But like, let's not ignore what has happened, right?
It's like, you know, the couple who just ignores their problems, so then feels like they're great, or the couple who addresses their problems. The problem is not saying the problem out loud.
Right.
It's a problem when you have this gut reaction to anyone who dares to say,
absolutely,
you know, there's an underbelly here.
For sure.
So I didn't realize, I knew that you were a Christian artist or a Christian musician. I didn't realize you were also a pastor. And I I work on like water, so I can deconstruct and keep on treating water just fine.
Right.
So, where you are now, it's kind of like an earthquake shifting, kind of change.
Yeah.
So, when you listen back to music you recorded, do you still connect with those messages? Do you?
Wow, that's a really good question. So this question, so like I asked myself this question beginning of December. This actually led to me. I recently made a statement just saying that I was agnostic. I don't know if you guys saw that, but
I did.
I had a show December 16th, and I get on stage, and I'm rapping, and there was like lyrics I literally had like a visual, like not visual, but I had like a physical reaction to certain things I was saying. And I was like, damn, I don't believe this.
Wow.
Right now, like I don't, and that was really, really tough because it was like, okay, where do I go from here? Right. Because I've now realized that I don't believe these things anymore. I'm having these physical reactions to like even speaking these lyrics. I don't think I can keep going and continue on performing, continue on releasing music without confronting this. And so, when I say I'm agnostic, it's basically me saying I am no longer certain or confident in my belief, right? I'm no longer confident in enough things about Christianity, right? And enough things about even the nature of God to where I can continue to claim, this religion, or this faith or whatever. And so I don't know what that looks like in the future. But I also know this, like anything that is true can stand up to the questions. Right? Anything that is true can stand up to you researching, you searching out, all of that. And so I wanted to be honest, and I wanted to be, I didn't want to like deceive my fan base by continuing to like do things without me being like 100% all in, or say things or perform things that I wasn't, at least confident in. Because I don't think I need to be certain, but I think if I'm saying it, I should at least be confident in it.
Yeah, that's the place that a lot of us going through this feel on some level, Yeah. I mean, I have more questions than I have answers,
right,
than before I started going down this path. And there's a lot of things I don't know about anymore. Yeah. But kudos to you for having the guts to say it, and I totally understand why. And there are things that I've taught classes in the past about that I don't feel like I can teach that anymore because I just don't believe that.
Yeah.
I do. I know we're kind of catching you. I mean, I feel like it's kind of raw, and not like it was a long process. But I have a lot of respect for, because there's got to be. I mean, that's a pretty big leap, or a risk that you're taking. That I think we put a lot, like just any minister or pastor, to expect them. That's a performance in of itself, to come out in front of people. I think at some point you come up to this kind of stuff, and you either have to choose to be vulnerable, or you have to choose to start putting on a mask.
Right.
And I could, sometimes putting on a mask is how you get through the day. Like I'm not speaking down to that, but to open up in that kind of a position where it maybe impacts your bottom line, I think that's kind of an extra burden that we put on ministers or pastors or artists, like asking them, you're either all in or all out.
For sure. Yeah.
There's not a space for the you don't want to go to church and then your pastor say, now before I, preach on Luke 2, I do want to say I'm not sure I believe this. Here we go.
Right.
Or like I'm super depressed and I, not feeling this at all. We kind of expect the opposite.
Right, 100%. So, just speaking to what you were saying, I think for me, like, I got to be authentic, right? And I got to, I think the lack of vulnerability, I think the lack of like a person being able to say like, hey, I don't know publicly, like is, part of the toxic culture of Western Christianity anyway. Right.
Yeah.
And so I had to shake from that. Now I know that makes people, it made people really, really makes people nervous. Right.
Yeah.
It makes a lot of people really, really nervous and sad, and people feeling like they need to defend their reality instead, which is weird, right? Because the responses for a lot of what I received was people feeling the need to defend their reality rather than being empathetic or
sitting with you in it.
Yeah, right. And so but as far as like what's next, I gotta have a single dropping January 28th. I'm not sure when this episode comes out, but January 28th, new single Press is coming out. I have a bunch of music that is dropping. Got a tour planned for this upcoming year. So
nice.
So I should have some dates and stuff here dropping soon.
I keep seeing snippets of music you're working on. I'm like, release it.
Yeah. Yep. So the release schedule is crazy. I'm really excited about what's next.
So the music's gonna keep coming out of you. It sounds
for sure. Yeah, at an even higher rate than before. I took November and December off from releasing music. So, but now I'm going to be dropping more consistent. A lot of music around my deconstruction. So me leaning into the tension on certain things and me talking about my journey and just, more vulnerability and all of that. And so I'm really excited about what's next. So
yeah, me too. That's great. So where can people find your stuff? What's the best place to start?
Yeah, so you can go to my website, jcrummusic.com, JCRUM music. And then you can follow me literally everywhere is jcrum music. So the same Twitter handle, the same Instagram handle, TikTok, everything is jcrum music, Facebook, all of that. So yeah. And then if you are an artist who are listening to this, I have an independent artist company that we help do graphic design, marketing, consultations. I have a course on there for teaching you how to like market your own music and everything. And so how to brand yourself, all of that. So you can go to streetlightsounds.co and you can check out, our services, request features, all that type of stuff. We would love to be able to work with you. So, yeah.
Well, man, I can't thank you enough for this has been fantastic. I could talk with you forever about this. So I've got a lot of more questions, but
yeah, I mean, it's uncomfortable to lean into the tension. We need more people doing that and saying the tension out loud and naming it. So definitely appreciate that. Good to hear your perspective as well. And I think it's kind of fighting to make space for this kind of thing possible,
Yeah.
I think we need more of that, people seeing that this is a place that's okay to occupy.
Right. Yeah, man. I appreciate y'all for real. This was fun.
Well, take care. See you later, man.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
But it only takes a whisper.
Hey, thanks for listening. We hope you got something out of the episode today. Check the show notes in your podcast app for all the links and references that were made, or you can find it all at followingthefire.com. If you'd like to support the show, please go to patreon.com/followingthefire to become a patron. And of course, we'd love it if you rate the podcast and share it with others. See you later.
With what you're worth.
Yeah. Lately I've been questioning all my traditions. Like is my mindset just a byproduct of my religion? If I continue in my life without a pot to piss in, my politics ain't lining up, that's where I found the distance. I bought my fist up and I proudly put it in the air. And then they tell me that I'm Marxist and should be aware. Ain't trying to step in your cathedral with my nappy hair. I seen your Jesus European, his complexion fair. How does it feel to know his skin was probably black as mine? I know some pastors that be triggered if they heard that line. Like why you make it black and white? Well, I experience the blackest nights within the walls of your creation. Been fighting to find a light, your blonde hair. Jesus ain't no friend of me. Don't pretend he ain't the king of white supremacy. They manipulated scripture just to paint a tainted picture. Let me present you with some truth so we can tear down all your fictions.